Connecticut's new red flag laws are now in effect. Welcome to another installment of the Connecticut Gun Bench. Today's video is brought to you by P.A.N. Firearms, LLC. P.A.N. Firearms for your NRA certification and multifaceted gun training. You can reach us at 203-300-6343 or use our website at www.panfirearmsllc.com. As always, there'll be a link in the description box below. Let's talk about this. Connecticut and the new or improved red flag laws, or the new provisions of it, are in effect as of June 1st. Needless to say, this raises an awful lot of questions, but first let's get some detail on what exactly we're dealing with here. And this is from PBS NPR. Connecticut's new red flag law provisions go into effect. As lawmakers work towards a compromise to strengthen federal gun laws, Connecticut has new red flag provisions on the books as of Wednesday that allow family members and clinicians to ask the court to intervene when a person poses an imminent risk of injury to himself or others. And immediately you kind of have to ask the immediate question is, what basis is this going to be working on? How does this play out? You've got a doctor or clinician or family member who may have a personal beef against you to start with, who may have issue with them to begin with, or a clinician or doctor who finds out you have guns, who just happens to be anti-gun, can now rush to the courts and say, you may need to intervene on this guy because of something they can make up. These red flag laws are very dangerous, but since 1999, Connecticut has allowed law enforcement officers to ask a judge to take away a person's firearms if that person posed an extreme risk. It's called a red flag law, and it was innovative when it was passed more than 20 years ago. As nearly 24 other states passed similar provisions, Connecticut's grew outdated. We had fallen behind, and there were some serious gaping holes in the statute that we had put on the books in 1999, said Bridgeport State Rep. Stephen Strafstrom, the chairman of the legislature's Judiciary Committee. Connecticut's law didn't prevent people who didn't yet own guns from going out and getting them once they were subject to an order. Once guns were seized, there was no process to get them back, and law enforcement didn't have a way to keep them in the event that the owner was still a threat. And while the law allowed police to petition the courts to take away someone's guns, it didn't allow concerned family members or clinicians to do the same. There's a reason why. Once again, personal beefs, personal biases. Now that is all changed. The new law was passed last year and took effect June 1st, and Strafstrom says the research shows law saves lives. For every 10 to 20 orders, researchers say one life has been saved. So they're basically saying, so for every 10 to 20 confiscation orders issued, one life is saved. So you're basically saying 9 to 19 people basically were falsely accused and had their property taken from them on the accusation of someone else. That sounds fair to me. So, if by allowing family members to initiate the application increases the number of applications over a given year in Connecticut by 100, that's 5 additional lives were saved. You're going to take away. So 100 people are going to have their property removed. That potentially, they're not saying it is, they're saying potentially save 5 lives. Let me ask a very, very, very straightforward and a glaring problem with this. What if you get that husband and wife in the middle of, say, marital issues such as divorce, and the wife goes to the court and says, oh yeah, this person's dangerous, with no proof? Once again, they're not asking you to provide proof. You just have to bring your concerns to the court, and it's up to the judge. And what is the bias of the judge that's getting this order in front of to be, that's going to sign off on the order? What is that person's bias? Once again, this is going to create a lot of problems. Right? So the idea really is to make the process as easy as possible for the petitioner. This law really is to prevent suicides, and I think that's where it has been shown to be most effective over the past 20 years in Connecticut. Yeah, because a gun is all you need to commit a suicide. Right? I remember a lady A woman unfortunately threw herself from the third story of the Stanford Mall, killed herself. What gun law, what red flag law was going to prevent that? But the law was passed after the Connecticut lottery shooting. In its first decade, law enforcement on average applied for roughly 30 risk protection orders each year. That's according to data from the state judicial branch. In its second decade, that average annual number went up to 150. Last year, officials filed for orders 224 times. So far this year, they submitted 91 warrants. A quarter of those were pending as of late May, but in over half of them, a judge has ordered that the state hold someone's firearms for the maximum limit of 1 year. Only 6 times were guns returned. Wow. Jeremy Stein, those of us in Connecticut know about this person, Executive Director of Connecticut Against Gun Violence, because gun violence is the only thing we have to worry about. Being stabbed to death is not an issue. Or being run over by an SUV is not a problem. But hey, if you got a firearm, then we have to associate you with that violence. But says there are good reasons to make it easier for the general public to get these emergency orders directly from the court. Not everybody's comfortable going to the police, Stein said, especially in certain communities where maybe they've had bad experience with the police and they don't really want to go to the police, or they're reluctant to go to the police. Stein also says the law considers the due process of the gun owner who wants to get weapons back. No, it does not, because you've got a person making an accusation with no proof. Then you have a judge who may have a bias who will sign off on that order. That person's firearms are confiscated, and now the petitioner or the person who's lost their property has to spend money on a lawyer to go get back something that they may not have been, falsely accused in the first place. No. There are plenty of safeguards here built in for the gun owners. Not one's being mentioned. Stein said, we have to remember that this is an emergency situation. This is something to protect the public. Statrum says that while most people may still go to the police to seek protection, this opens another pathway. During business hours, you could walk into your local courthouse. They will hand you a form to fill out. That is an affidavit. It would say, I believe someone is a danger to herself or others, and here's why. He said, that is then immediately presented to a judge. If the judge agrees, then they will send a police officer out to investigate. Okay, let's look at this last little paragraph here. During business hours, you can walk into the local courthouse. So you got a beef with somebody, you go down to your local courthouse, you get a form that you fill out with your grievance, which they say is an affidavit that you believe someone is a danger to herself or others, and you have to give a reason why. Then the judge gets it. You have presented no proof other than your words on that document. Judge looks at it. What is the judge going to do? Forget about the fact that judge may have their own bias. Push that aside. The judge is looking at something that you wrote, no other physical evidence with it. The judge says, yeah, I kind of agree about it, signs off on it. Then the police go to the person's home and they go to investigate. And what happens then? The police are going to default to taking the firearms. What else are they going to do? Because if they don't, and let's say something maybe happens, they realize that they're under scrutiny. So they're going to default to, we're just going to remove the firearms based on the words of someone else with no physical proof to back it up. Anyone can say anything against anyone and prove nothing at the end. And even if they're found to be wrong, there are no consequences, other than the person who was hindered by the words of someone else having to go through a legal process to once again get their property back. I have no problem with somebody who is a clear threat to the community having, being scrutinized. But when it comes down to basically one person's word against another and then having a legal system to back up unsubstantiated words, I really have a problem with that. Now, I had a conversation with this on social media and somebody, and they pointed out facts. I've seen this happen where somebody made false accusations. I've seen them make false accusations against another person who then had to give up their guns because of that false accusation. They had to wait, almost a year to go through court to finally prove that this was false, and then they got their property back. But I was actually talking about that on social media, and somebody actually went down the rabbit hole and said, well, if somebody is inconvenienced, I have no problem with that. I'm like, wow. It's funny how people have no problem with other people being inconvenienced until it's them. When the inconvenience comes to them, now it's a violation of somebody's rights. But this is now in effect, and we got a whole new set of, well, not massive, but we have a new set of rules to play by here, where somebody can make an accusation against you. You cut somebody off in a parking lot. They can go to the court and make an accusation that you said you did, and that has happened also. There was an incident right here in Connecticut where a gentleman was cut off by a woman he was on a motorcycle. She's driving a car. She cut him off. They had an argument. She saw a gun on his hip. She then went to the police and told them that he threatened her. Now, and they come to find out months later that wasn't true. That's going to make this kind of situation easier to do with something like this. But these people don't care, because it's not about actually curtailing violence. It's just literally hampering people under their rights. And it's going to see a flurry of these so-called affidavits being submitted to the court for personal vindictive reasons, and not necessarily because the person is a threat. But let me know what you think. As always, you can leave your comments in the comment section below. And as always, any comments of violence or statements that lead to violence will be removed. Please like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to hit the notification bell so you get notified the next time a video goes live. And I will see you on the next one. Peace.